Sometimes when you're driving down the road all by yourself, you begin to hear a voice that tells you need to look around, pay attention. Maybe something isn't quite right. That voice is me. It's the voice of Gord. G'day, and welcome to another episode of Voice of Gord. I got a special one here for you today, guys. Reaching deep into my past, back to my hometown of Beamsville, Ontario, to speak with my old buddy Vince Sturge. I've known Vince since I was in elementary school, and he's been trucking for almost as long as I have. You might have bumped into him on Instagram. He's a Canadian coal roller, I think. I'm not on Instagram. I'm not much of a social media guy outside of Twitter and retiring my Facebook a few years ago, but enough about that. Vince is great. We spoke about the importance of looking good and having a good attitude out on the road and an approach to the profession that is truck driving. I had a real good chat with Vince. I think the drivers amongst my fan base are going to really enjoy this. I've been looking forward to talking with Vince for a while now. I hooked Vince up with my old buddy Bruce at the Lead Pedal podcast. Shout out to Bruce. Shout out to Lead Pedal. I'll include Vince's appearances on Bruce's show in the notes, and you can go check those out. I don't have much in the way else of news, except there'll be another episode this week. This is a special week. You're getting 2 episodes instead of 1. Apologies for this one being released a day late. Won't hold you up any longer. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Vince Sturge. G'day, and welcome to another episode of Voice of Gord. I'm Gord. This is my voice. And the other voice you're going to hear today, an old buddy of mine from my hometown of Beamsville, Ontario, Canada, Mr. Vince Sturge. Vincent, good morning.
Good morning, sir. How you doing?
Well, I'm fantastic for 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning. How are you?
I hear you. I'm about the same.
I see you've you made the trip to Tim Hortons.
Yeah, made the trip. I got 2 coffees here. I'm good to go for an hour or so.
The essential Canadian institution.
Yes, sir.
Well, the nearest Tim Hortons to me is down in Halstead. First exit off 81 going into Pennsylvania, and that's an hour drive. So I make it myself here at home. You were just off the recording here. You were filling me all in on the truck drivers. Typically, for the most part, especially if you're doing long haul, you live in your truck. That's your own personal space, and you have to manage it to the standards you set. You know, you're the captain of the ship. It's your house. Unfortunately, trucks break down. Companies want you to jump into other trucks. Some of them make a practice out of it called slip seating, which is hell on earth, and I would never work anywhere that did that. Tell us about the selection of fine replacement vehicles they gave you to choose from.
So Wednesday, their truck broke down, had those DEF codes, so no big deal.
It was the emissions control system. Yeah. Even better.
that good stuff. That horse piss.
Keep going.
So they said, drop your truck off at Kenworth, get it plugged in, yada, yada, yada. Okay, no big deal. Well, they said the parts it's going to be 2 different sensors, some throttle knock sensor and something else. Whatever it was going to be a day before they got the parts in. Okay, no big deal. Storm was coming in on Thursday. You know what? Might as well take a family day anyway. Nobody wants to be out on the roads with the ice and all the idiots and all that shit other way. Cut your losses, no big deal. Tell me to come in Friday morning. Your truck will be ready. Go load for Cleveland, deliver Monday morning. Okay, no problem. So I get in there Friday, and they said, "Oh, your truck's not going to be ready till probably in and around noon. But you got to get out to Welland to load." So just take this loaner truck and go out to Welland and load and come back, and your truck will be ready by then. Well, I go out trying to look for trucks, and I get a text message. Your truck's not going to be ready till Monday now. The part's not going to come in till later today, and there's nobody to put it on at the dealership. So you're going to have to take a loaner truck for the whole weekend. So whatever truck you pick, make sure it's one that you're going to sleep in. And already my mind's just, it's starting to trip out on me. I'm not one of those guys that can just, like you said, the slip seating or anything else like that. Drive a truck for one day is one thing, but to sleep in it overnight, that's a whole different ball game. So I opened a couple doors. One door's got puke all down the side of it, sunflower seeds, piss jugs. Close the door. Next truck, piss jugs, sunflower seeds. I'm like, is this starting to become like a recurrence here? Like, is this what everybody fucking does around here? Like this is disgusting. So we go through 3 more trucks, and finally I said, that's it. I ain't fucking doing nothing. I'm going home. Oh, no. We got to get this load delivered. It's got to get picked up. It's got to get delivered. Well, I need my cleanliness and I need my fucking sanity too. And that ain't going to happen, me driving this truck. So finally we find a truck that's semi half decent. There's no puke on the door when you open it up. There's no piss jugs. So right now we're a couple steps above the other trucks. I look, there's dog kibble everywhere. No, I'm not, I don't care about guys having their pets and stuff in their trucks. That's their home, that's their business, that's their companion, whatever. It is what it is. Clean up after yourself, clean up after your dog, just like you would at your house. You don't let your dog kibble all over your kitchen floor or wherever your dog eats. You don't let hair just pile up and, by dishes and all that kind of shit. There was dog hair and dog kibble everywhere. So I said, you guys go in and clean this out, sweep it out. I will drive this truck for the afternoon to go load my load. But as opposed to taking this across the border, not going to fucking happen. So you got 2 choices. Put the rush on them and put the pinch on them to get my truck fixed, or this load isn't going to deliver till Tuesday because my truck won't be ready till Monday. About an hour later, I get loaded, get back to the yard. All of a sudden, oh, Vince, go pick up your truck. It's ready. It's amazing how fast my truck gets ready when I refuse to drive the equipment. It's just.
Well, just imagine for a moment, you roll up to customs, right? So you're in Southern Ontario, you're going to haul a load to Cleveland, across the border, you get pulled in for a random inspection. U.S. Customs and Border Patrol goes through your truck, and you're the guy sitting there, and they think it's your truck. And dog kibble, puke, piss jugs, and who knows what else hiding under the bunk. You're going to wear it, right? So,
Yep.
over and above the cleanliness factor, when you're crossing the border all the time, you sort of got to know the history of the truck in question and what's inside it, like down to a granular level, because if Uncle Sam decides to investigate you a little further on the way south, they'll tear your truck apart, and Canada Customs can do the same thing coming home. So it sort of behooves you to know every cubic millimeter of what's going on in that unit, right?
Yep, 100%.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So your truck's over at Kenworth and Stony Creek?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
Is there any parking left there anymore? I've heard the paddocks basically took over the whole backyard.
Yeah, that was it. It was like paddock was like, okay, knock knock, who's there? Well, we're coming to take over your yard. So so there was really not much of they really have just from basically their shop doors to the end of their shop doors for parking and storage of trucks, and that's it. All the back lot is all paddocks now with their trailers, their equipment, their trucks, their everything. They've just taken over the whole block.
Pretty soon they'll have Stony Creek covered, right? They have to find another old steel mill to move into.
Yep, pretty much.
If you don't mind saying, who is it you're working for now?
I work for White Oak Transportation.
Oh, White Oaks. Okay.
Yep.
Wow. And so last time we spoke, I think you were driving a live bottom gravel or asphalt trailer of some description, right?
Yep, that didn't work out as well as I thought. Some all these guys show off your, these nice trucks and fancy trucks, and you're going to make all this money and we're going to treat you so good. And it's always the fucking opposite. Always the opposite. Nicer the truck it seems to be, the bigger the asshole or the bigger the douchebag of a fucking company it seems to be. They don't want to pay you the proper wage because you're driving a fancy truck. You think that, you should be grateful that you're, given such a spectacular, vehicle to drive down the road and look good in. And they want to replace that as your sort of your pay scale sort of thing.
Well,
Like, look at me, I'm driving a nice truck.
exactly. The aesthetics are important, but so is the paycheck. But
Yep.
you're an aesthetics and sharp looking truck enjoyer, and your reputation precedes you. You've always had very sharp, nice looking equipment, especially your
Yep.
own trucks back in the day.
Yep. And I'm one to always drive a nice unit, but sometimes you got to look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture right now is the money that's coming in with the rising prices of everything from diapers to groceries to fuel to you name it. The truck doesn't make you any more money. And these days, I'm all about making most bang that I can get to support my family. So if I've got to drive, a plain Jane 380 or 567 Peterbilt, you know what? So be it. Because if that's going to pay me more money than driving a fancy brand new, 389 or a 379 or a W9, it is what it is at this point.
Well, we have to make these calculations. I hear you about feeling the pinch, man. Inflation, as it is all around the world, is certainly eating up a lot of our paychecks. And I live in a pretty low wage part of the world myself. I often wonder if I have to go back over the road, staying away, but I got two little ones here at the house, so
Yep.
I won't be doing that anytime soon.
Yep.
You had your own trucks in the past, and I think you used to run the Sioux a lot, hauling coils.
Yep. Ran the Sioux a lot, hauling coils, hauling scrap up there, hauling scrap back out to Manitoulin Island a lot. Spent a lot of time up there with my own trucks,
What were you doing on the island?
bringing scrap out. So you
No
go in,
kidding.
yeah, you go in, take scrap from the one big scrap yard that's down there, and bring it all the way back up to Sault Ste. Marie, empty out, reload some kind of turnings or anything coming back down, and bring that back down to Triple M there in Hamilton.
So scrap north and scrap south.
Yep.
Interesting how that works. I wouldn't have thought scrap iron, given that there's a big steel mill in the Sioux and another one in Hamilton. I wouldn't think they'd want to pay to haul it in either direction. I mean, scrap is scrap, or am I missing something here?
No, no, scrap is basically scrap, but Triple M came up with this. I don't know if it was their design or whose it was, but the inside of like your interior of your vehicle, how it's got all the fluff and the wiring and all through your vehicle and shit like that. So they load your truck with all this. Basically, it's called fluff. So it's the interiors of your vehicle. It's the all the little copper wires, all the little red, yellow, black, all your wiring that goes through your vehicle. It gets thrown in with all like the roof part, like the cloth and your seats and all that shit, and gets packed into your trailer. You bring that back down to Southern Ontario, to Triple M. Now, Triple M has got this design for this, whatever this thing's called, and it separates everything. So it'll separate all the little wires, all the copper, all the aluminum, anything that's in that load, it separates it into its own individual pile. So it'll take the cloth, all that padding and styrofoam and everything else. It'll push that off to its own pile and take the copper, put it into its own pile. The aluminum, it'll put it into its own pile. So it's a pretty interesting, intricate design. So they can maximize every piece of scrap that's in a vehicle, from the wiring all the way down to the rims on the vehicle.
Wow, one processing unit that sorts it all out. That's pretty high tech.
Yeah, yeah. So it wasn't the greatest paying stuff, but it was steady work. So you made most of your money going up, and at least you got something for coming back down. It wasn't the best paying coming back down, but you've already made your money in your rates going up. So at least you're, like I said, at least you're getting something coming back down, or you're not going broke. It covers your fuel for coming back down because you've already made your money on the loads going up, sort of thing, right?
Right. And I've never, I find it interesting you were going over to Manitoulin Island. That's one of the few places in Canada I've never been to. Um,
It's a beautiful place.
so if I recall correctly, if you're going to the island from the south, from the peninsula, you have to take a ferry. And
I
from
took
the is there a bridge or a causeway or something at the north end? Like I say, I'm
Yep,
totally ignorant of this. I've never been there, so
yep. Some people, some cars and stuff, they can take a ferry, but there is a swing bridge in there. As soon as you get in there, there's a great big, huge swing bridge that takes you onto to the other side of the island. I never took a ferry, or nothing, just right across the swing bridge, and then back through the old country roads, the logging roads, and everything else, and that's all you see out there. There's no other truck but logging roads coming out of Manitoulin, except for like your dry vans or your reefers that are feeding the community, so to speak, right?
right. So that swing bridge will accommodate a Super B or a 5 axle fully
Yep,
loaded.
yep,
Okay.
yeah,
Crazy.
yeah. It was pretty fun. I really enjoyed it because you get into Manitoulin Island at say 7 o'clock at night in the wintertime. Everything's pitch dark, and it's just pure solace, man. It's just silence, nice, and just you, nature. You hear the coyotes at nighttime howling and stuff like that, and it's just total peace and tranquility, man. It was one of the better runs that I had because you knew that you're going to get a good night's sleep, and it was nice and quiet. Nobody was going to bug you. There was no truck idling beside you, or no reefer, or somebody's air dryer going off every 15 seconds because they were too lazy to fix it, 6 hours before. So they're going to piss everybody off at a truck stop having your air dryer go off every 15 seconds.
Yeah, it's my truck just went in to get a bunch of work done to it, and one of the items was the air dryer filter cartridge,
Yeah.
because it was causing some issues. Man, I drive a logging truck for this guy here. It's interesting getting back to the slip seating thing. When I moved into it, it only had 110,000 miles on it, and not too much. That's just broken in, but it's required all this work as of late. I come to find out from my boss because he told me when he first hired me that he taught one guy how to drive on that truck. Well, it turns out he taught 3 guys how to drive on that truck. So that's, it has all these little quirks it's developed. Trucks in their time, depending on who drove them, how many people drove them, the conditions they operated in, will develop all their own, personality. Only 185,000 miles on it now, and the rotors and brakes are being replaced, and it's getting a new rad. And I'm like, I had a little feeling like, was this my fault? Like, what did I do to the damn thing? Was it the logging, or was it all the guys before me? Because it seems
Mm-hmm.
awfully early for all of this stuff to be shitting itself. You know how it is. You're going down the road and you got nothing to do but like think.
Mm-hmm.
You start, internalizing all of these problems and blaming yourself for it. And I wonder if they take advantage of that sometimes. Like if you're a conscientious operator, the people that own the truck know that, and all right, well, we can, psychologically abuse the guy driving the truck, take advantage of his sense of ownership over the thing, and
Yeah. It seems like they do for some reason. It always seems like that.
right. So you were hauling scrap back and forth from the Sioux. Did you ever get into the coil business as well? That
Yeah,
seems
yeah, I
that,
did.
that seems to have been a thing.
Yeah, I did coils up there for a long time. I did the oversized plate coming back down out of Algoma. They're the 10 feet wide or 11 feet wide steel plate coming back down into Stelco in Hamilton. Uh, I did coils for a while, and then it just seemed to become too brainless.
Anything can be that way after you do it enough, because once you
Mm-hmm.
get good at something, you're sort of good at it. I guess this is one of the sort of, I don't want to say unspoken things about trucking, but once you achieve a certain level of operational capability, it can seem fairly monotonous after a little while.
Yep,
I
yep.
mean, you're always going to get something new thrown at you, and you never know what's going to happen on the road one day to the next. But if you go through periods of smooth sailing, it can start to feel like maybe I could be doing something else.
Yep. And that's why I moved on from steel. It just seemed to be a waste of my time and talent, so to speak, because it just seemed like it was just you're going through the motions, and half the time you don't remember, you know, you loading or going down the road. You just remember that you showed up to load and you showed up to unload. Everything else in the middle, pretty much non-existent. You don't remember it because it's just you become so accustomed to it that it just rolls and just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling from day to day to day. That sometimes you don't even remember if you got one coil on or two coils on because that's all you're doing. You got to look at your bills like, oh shit, I don't have one coil on, I got two coils on. What the hell am I thinking? But you just become so accustomed to doing your everyday job that it's just second nature to you. It's like walking into your door and you got the same routine. You hang your keys up, you take your boots off, you take your coat off. It's the same as hauling steel or anything in the trucking industry. Once you get in that routine of doing the same thing day in and day out, it's just like, okay, did I leave the truck? Did I leave my keys in my truck or did I hang them up this time? Oh shit, I don't remember.
Well, and to bring it back to what we were saying about slip seating, everyone develops routines, and it doesn't matter if you're driving a truck or working anywhere. People tend to be creatures of habit,
Mm-hmm.
and you develop these routines. Mistakes happen when routines get interrupted,
Mm-hmm.
right? So again, the slip seating thing, trucks having different personalities, and maybe they're spec differently. Maybe the buttons on the dash for different accessories on the truck are different. The guy who drove it before you treated it differently. I've always found, you hear guys tell stories of of woe and breaking down problems, issues on the road, and quite a bit of them are the result of having to jump in a different truck and having your routine interrupted, right? A lot of mistakes start happening. You get thrown in a different truck and, oh, everybody's in a hurry and their hair's on fire. This load has to get moved. And then you don't have all your own tools and kit. There's some weird quirk about that truck you're not used to, or your brain goes into like fight or flight mode or something because you're doing something that's out of your routine. Maintaining that routine, as monotonous as it can be at times, also helps make things safer, more efficient. Gets things done better.
Yep. No, exactly. I mean, that's one of the reasons why when I'm loading, I have a certain way that I load, a certain speed that I load. It's not, super fast. It's not slow like a turtle. It's right in between. I take my time. You sort of, just like you're going for a walk down the street, nice and easy. You're not in it for, a sprint. You're not in it for, to go too slow to, freeze your ass off on this walk that that you want to do to get yourself healthy. It's just, you just go at your nice, easy pace. And I do the same with loading. I don't touch my truck or I don't touch my phone, sorry, when I'm loading. Phone stays in the cab. Any kind of distraction from there on out will be a distraction that gets thrown in by a third party, like a crane operator or another driver. As you're trying to set up your trailer for loading or getting ready to unload, that's when those kinds of mistakes I find happen because, like you said, you get thrown out of your normal routine. So as you're going to take off, say, a binder, the driver comes up and asks for help all of a sudden, and you drop what you're doing to go help another driver. All of a sudden you forget what step of your process that you're at. So all of a sudden you get everything done. You think, okay, I'm good to go. All of a sudden the crane guy goes, hey, stupid, there's still woman chain left on your coil there. We can't take it off because you're still strapped down to the deck, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But just one of those things throws you off your routine. It's no different than when you're loading because you go to help somebody else, loading or helping a fellow driver. You can miss a step trying to secure your own sort of load.
One of the things I think that happens with that, especially to newer drivers, is you'll get in a situation somewhere people want you to move your truck, you need to adjust, your trailer might need to be repositioned, or there's a huge line of guys behind you, and the pressure gets on. And I always tell new guys, don't let anybody push you, don't let anybody rush you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let anybody get you out of your little routine, because that's when the mistakes get made. You have to move your trailer. There's still a strap hanging off the side. You run over the strap. Something gets
Yep.
wrapped around a fender. The mistakes and the costs start adding up real quick the minute
Yep.
you let people push you, or you allow any pressure to get to you. I think one of the things that senior seasoned drivers should do when they find themselves at a loading location or a truck stop or whatever, and you see some other guy who's moving slow or maybe taking his time, kind of assume maybe they're new at it, and they're not comfortable, or they're trying to maintain their routine, and just let them do it. You know,
Yep.
because if you add to the pressure pile by getting impatient with them or giving them shit, that's
Yep.
probably not very helpful.
No, no, exactly. And I mean, everybody's got like their own mannerisms, and you can tell when somebody needs help. Normally, people that need help, usually they're standing there, their hands are in their, their hands are on their head, they're scratching their head, they're looking around, they're looking confused, sort of thing. They're
Yeah,
not, they're just showing tall tale signs of they need help without asking for help, so to speak, right?
yeah,
Whereas a guy who's loading and just taking his time, you can see he's computing what's going on upstairs. He's still walking around. He's moving kind of slow, but you can tell that he's in his own groove. He's doing what he needs to do. He's doing his thing. He doesn't need help. So you leave those type of guys alone. But you can tell, like I said, by people's mannerisms, the way that they're looking around, and they're sort of looking around like, is anybody looking so they can come help me, because I'm too scared to go ask for help, because the last time I asked the guy for help, he told me to go fuck myself, sort of thing, right? So it's one of those things where it's a fine line where you can tell if people need help or people are just trying to get their job done.
Speaking of being new and trying to look after new guys, we were all new guys at one time, and we're both from the same what was once a small town in southern Ontario, Beamsville,
Yeah.
exit 64 on the Queen Elizabeth Way, home of the old relay station truck stop. Um, what remind me when it was you started trucking, Vince? I can't quite remember.
1998. I just turned 18. I turned 18, and the very next day I went for my road test, passed with flying colors. So 20, going on 25 years now.
Wow, yeah, so you're only a year behind me. I got mine in '97.
So it's been a ride, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I remember and it's been quite a ride. And all those the trucks you've owned. Didn't one of them catch on fire once?
Yep. Yep. That was my favorite one of all the trucks I've owned. That was by far, that was my baby. That was the one that I sunk all my blood, sweat, tears, everything into. I was a local driver at the time, and you couldn't get me out of my truck. I was sleeping at the yard for a couple hours. You couldn't get me out of the seat, man. It was one of those things where we just we clicked, me and that truck. We had a bond, like a father and son, like a mother and daughter sort of thing. It was one of those things where my wife would say, "Are you coming home?" Nope. Another load just popped up. Well, it's 11 o'clock at night. Well, yep, another load just popped up, so we're going back to work. So it didn't turn down nothing, because it was one of those things where that was my baby. That was, yeah, that was my truck. That was the truck of trucks for sure.
And remind us, make, model, year, engine
It
specifications.
it was a oh it was a 2000 and 2005 Peterbilt 379. Had the ISX Cummins in it, 550 horse, 390 rear ends, 285 wheelbase, all decked right out. I don't think there was any more chrome I could have put on the thing. I'd have to start inventing places to put chrome. So it was a working show truck, and for being in the scrap industry, guys would look at you and shake their head. And I started getting the nickname Princess, because my truck was always clean going into a scrapyard, and staying clean. And like the old thing, boots come off at the door. There's no dirt, and guys would say, "Oh, I don't got time for that. I don't got time for that. I'm in and out of my truck." Well, you know what, bud? I'm in and out of the same slot pits that you are every single day. You don't finish any quicker than I do. I don't finish any quicker than you do. We do the exact same job, the exact same amount of loads, and my truck is still immaculate at the end of the day. So basically what it comes down to is laziness. There's no other word for it. I mean, if that's how you want to drive your truck and you drive with your boots on and you drive, you know what, no qualms about it. But you know what, keep the inside of your truck clean. Just because you drive a scrap truck or a truck that gets dirty all the time doesn't mean you got to look the part. You're supposed to look like a professional. You know, your truck is one thing going down the road. It can't help but get dirty and trashed and all that kind of stuff. But that's what soap and water is there for. It cleans it up. But
soap and water and a high pressure hose.
yep. But I mean, you don't have to look like your truck. You're not getting, rained on as you're going down the road and shit like that. You need to be presentable at all times. And I've always been like that. You need to look the part. You don't want to dress, jump out in track pants and flip flops and everything else and say, "Oh, I'm here to go pick up a load. I've got a safety hat, but I've got slippers or sandals on my feet, and I stink and everything else." That's not how you want to be portrayed.
I always laugh. You see someone in their mandatory steel-toed work boots and their hard hat, but they've got like the Adidas tracksuit thing going on.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. I believe it or not, I seen a guy 2 weeks ago. It was in Cleveland. I can't remember the big steel company name. It's a big company. Anyways, the guy had steel toe sandals on, and they were homemade. So he took the inside of a work boot, or like the outside, the steel toe part. He had sawed that. He had put that over top of his Jesus boots that he had, because they had the crisscross leather straps going up his foot, and he had them somehow secured so there was a steel cap over top of his sandals. And I was dumbfounded. I've never seen it. It looked like a pair of Crocs basically with a steel cap over top of it. And
that's certainly a creative and innovative way to comply.
Yeah. There's one of those things where you see it and you're like, did I really just see that? Somebody went through all that effort instead of just putting on a pair of steel toe work boots. They went through all that effort so they could wear their sandals. Like, come on, people. Like,
well, I'm sure we get that in the other direction too, right? Like, some of your fellow scrap haulers might be like, why is that guy going through all that effort to keep his truck clean, man? Like, that's bizarre to me. It's everybody has their preferences.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that ours are more correct, Vince.
Yeah, that's what I think. Like, my wife calls me insane all the time. Whether I get home and it's raining or it's nice out, my truck gets washed, it gets cleaned. Even if I'm out there in the rain, she's like, "It's raining. You're an idiot."
No, the rain helps to rinse off when you're finished.
That's it. The rain helps to rinse off, but there's still that dirt on there that's got to come off that only the pressure washer can get. And she just, she just shakes her head. She's like, "I'm used to it." "Oh, sorry, sweetheart. This is what you signed up for there, 12 years ago."
Has it been that long now?
Yeah, it's been that long. We got married we got together in 2011. We got married in 2016.
Okay, because I remember coming to your Stag and Doe in Hamilton.
Yep.
What was the venue on that? Wasn't it up off Parkdale somewhere?
Yeah, it was Parkdale and Barton Street, I believe it was, at one of the old, I don't know if it was a church or one of those,
like a Polish community center or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. One of those community centers or something having to do with that.
Yeah, I remember being at that party. That was fun. I think I came with my sister and her husband Scott.
Yeah, it was a good time. It was that part there was more stressful than my wedding, believe it or not. Because we had to do everything, and then you have your wedding party involved, and then you have everybody else. Well, we want to do this, we want to do this, we want help by doing this, we want help by doing that. Where the wedding, it was all planned by the wedding planner, and all we really had to do was just sign off on the decorations or the flowers or what have you, right? They made all the decisions. We didn't really have to do anything. So there was no feelings involved. But the Stag and Doe, yeah, it was stressful. It was definitely stressful.
By the end of it, you were probably mellowed out a little bit after a few beers, maybe.
Yep, yep. Just a few. Yeah, but yeah, it was a good time though.
So all these years of marriage, and how many children do you have now?
Four.
That's a few mouths to feed.
Yeah, I got a 16-year-old boy. I got a 14-year-old daughter, and then I've got a 4-year-old son, and then I've got another 2-year-old daughter.
Wow, that's quite the spread too.
Yeah,
I imagine. Well, I mean, speaking of washing trucks, at least the two older ones should be part of the wash crew by now.
they try, but it's one of those things where I'm meticulous with my truck, so they sort of try and stay away as much as possible when Dad's cleaning because they know if they miss a spot, then Dad's a little Dad's a little bit OCD when you miss a spot on this truck and everything's nice and clean, and then all of a sudden there's just one big mud spot and you can see it, and then you can it's like you can see it from Mars. It just stands right out.
Yeah.
So
There's a photo my dad has. Same town, same situation. So my dad sort of grew up in Rosedale, so kind of back towards the mountain and then
yep.
west of Parkdale a little bit. He has a photo of my uncle Bruce's 1960 Kenworth. I thought it was a 68. Turns out it's a 60. So anyway, the picture was taken in 1970 in front of my Noni and Papa's house on Montrose Avenue in Rosedale, and on the back of the truck is my dad. Standing on the ground is my auntie Reenie, and my dad would have been 15, and Reenie would have only been, I don't know, 11 or 12 years old. And they're washing my Uncle Bruce's 1960 Kenworth.
Yep.
So, family tradition, same town,
And
same place, same everything.
yeah, and that's the thing. It all goes with appearance. Like, and I've always been a stickler with that. It doesn't matter when you show up to a place, you want to show up looking professional. You don't want to show up with a shitty looking truck and shit hanging off and falling off, and then you get out and you're in flip flops and you've got no safety gear. You don't know how to load, and it all goes back. It all coincides, hand in hand.
Yeah, I know a lot. I know it's here in North America, drivers like to make fun of those who wear flip flops. My show was recently syndicated in Australia, so this will be on an Australian radio network. And down under, because it's so hot, all truck drivers wear flip flops. I mean, when you get to a loading site or you get to a mine, you got to have like, they're real sticklers about this on mine sites, especially high vis, yellow shirt, long
Mm-hmm.
sleeves, long pants, steel toe boots, all that. But like, as soon as you leave, almost everybody takes all that crap off, boots come off because it's just hot.
Yep. Yep.
And there used to be an old stereotype of Aussie truck drivers that would, singlet stubbies and jandals, which is muscle shirt, short rugby shorts, and flip flops, and that's that's it. And I was an enjoyer of that for a while, but yeah, you get funny looks if you dress like that around these parts. So
Yep. Yeah, it's one thing to, I bring my track pants with me. I bring my shorts and stuff like that. When I'm done loading for the day and I want to relax in my truck and just chill out, yeah, I throw on my track pants or my shorts and I just, I'm like a homeless person in my truck. I dress however I feel like it because nobody's going to see me. But once I go to get out to go into the truck stop, I put, I put my normal shirt back on. I put my jeans or, my coveralls or whatever I'm wearing. And I go in, I don't make myself look unprofessional outside of the truck. When I'm in that truck, it's like I'm laying in my bedroom. Who cares? But once I'm out of that truck, I'm representing myself. I'm representing my company. I don't want to be looked upon as one of those guys that doesn't really give a shit about their truck or about their appearance and stuff like that. I mean, it's not like I'm, doing my hair or anything else like that or anything fancy or putting on cologne, but you want to look the part. You want to look professional as much as possible when you're out of that truck because not only are you representing yourself, you're representing your company out there, no matter
and the
where
and
you
the
go.
and the industry as a whole, in a
Yeah,
certain respect.
yeah. I mean, you're basically nowadays every company has their name, their phone number, all their credentials down the side, their DOT number, their CVOR number. You're a walking billboard out there, or a moving billboard, as I should say,
Or a
out there,
target,
right?
depending on
So,
who you're talking to.
so I mean, you see it all over the place, and then companies get a bad rap for that, because they see, they're what they're portrayed out as out there, by the way their trucks look, the way their drivers look. It all goes hand in hand. And a lot of the times, those are the people that are pay really, really crappy because they don't have a good name in the industry, and they can't afford to pay anybody because they don't have a good name out there, and they're not getting the work like they should be. I mean, it's all appearances, number one out there, in my books. That's what you first see when you
in
pull up.
your books, maybe not everybody else's, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
there's something to be said about aesthetics, which is one of the reasons I wanted you to come on, because you're that guy. Get home, wash the truck, always look sharp. You have a professional attitude towards these things, and
Hmm.
I don't want to be old, grumpy old man yelling at cloud here. Well, back in my day, but it does seem to be something of a lost art, especially given the sort of consolidation that's been
Hmm.
happening in the trucking business basically since we started.
Yep.
This has been like a 25, 30-year project of income funds and large corporate carriers buying up small guys, putting them all under the same roof.
Yep.
And, I mean, some of those places maintain some kind of aesthetic dignity, so to speak, but not everybody. And
Hmm.
they certainly don't prioritize it. And some of it comes back to the trucks themselves. I'm not a real big fan of, and neither are you, I think, of the sort of fake fiberglass aerodynamic fairings, kind of beige, lozenge shaped. They're just not trucks.
Yep.
And some people might think I'm a dinosaur because I like square hood conventionals, much like yourself. But like,
Yep.
there's something about that classic look, and there's something about driving it, and there's something about like it looks like a truck. And one of the tells is, I was having a conversation with someone about this on Twitter the other day. Freight brokers, recruiters, a lot of different people in the trucking industry in their marketing, they'll always have like the silhouette of a 379 or some square hood truck in all
Yep.
of their marketing and advertising copy. But then out on the road, it's white Volvo, white Freightliner,
Hmm. Yeah.
the newer, really gross looking Western Stars,
Yep.
the sort of square hood classic look truck is kind of, going the way of the dodo. But the thing is, all of that is in pursuit of better fuel mileage and fuel economy. And I get that, but you can also get better fuel mileage just by driving slow,
Yeah.
which is safer, easier on the tires, easier on the equipment, easier on everything else. So, I mean, if it's up to me, I would rather drive a truck that looks like a truck, feel good about it, represent the industry as people understand what it's supposed to look like,
Yep.
and save money that way rather than doing 74 miles an hour with, you know, fairings all over the place. And,
Yep.
I know some guys that are like that. My buddy Jamie out in South Dakota, he's got, 11 or 12 trucks, and they're all fairinged out to here. And he's got the new Max, and he's doing really good with the fuel mileage, and good for him.
Yep.
No disrespect to guys that want to do that. There's real heads like Jamie that are nerds about fuel efficiency, and he still manages to make his trucks look good, and he's still got something to offer. And then
Right.
there's the other people that just kind of accept it as status quo and they don't care. And
Hmm.
that's unfortunately the vast majority of the trucks you see on the road nowadays. It's
Yep.
uh, vexatious to the spirit, as it were.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, you see these people in all their ads, they've got old conventional trucks, big hoods, and everything else like that. So people notice those as trucks, as a symbol. As you get a slippery hood that's or a Volvo or anything else like that, people don't recognize that as a truck in the industry as you're going down the road. You don't see that like plastered on billboards. Come drive this Volvo. You're gonna, have a great time. You don't see that. You don't see that at all. But that's the way of the future. And I think that the way that drivers are coming about these days, a lot of these companies don't want to spend $200, $300, $400,000 on a conventional, square big hood, because the caliber of drivers that they're getting, they're going to end up replacing hood after hood after hood because they can't they can't drive, and it's cheaper to go for plastic for them. More, it's more economical for them because they don't have the calibers of drivers that can keep those trucks going down the road looking good without damage, or trying to back into somewhere and they can't. Oh, this truck is too big, I can't see over the hood, I can't do this. It's too big, sort of thing, right? There's the quality of driver isn't out there anymore.
You say the Volvo. You remember the old movie Over the Top, Sylvester Stallone?
Yeah, I just watched it the other day.
Oh man, classic. But like, they have it backwards. He starts off the movie, driving an old auto car that looks like it was from the 1960s or something. And then when not to give away the ending or anything, but I think we've all seen it. He wins that arm wrestling championship and he drives away with a brand new Volvo. And
Yeah,
I always thought to myself, well, they kind of got that ass backwards.
yeah. But
But that was like 19. That was what, like 1986 or 87 or
yeah,
something, and like
yeah. But
Volvos didn't quite look completely retarded back then.
yep.
I mean, they still sort of kind of looked like a truck.
But even still, if you look back to then at that movie, he says, when he wins the truck, he wins a $250,000 Volvo. Since when did Volvos cost $250,000 back in 1986?
I think they
They're
must
only
have. I think they must have included the price of the trailer or something. I don't
they
know.
must have done something, because these prices just started coming out within the last 5 to 10 years of these trucks climbing north of $200,000.
I
You know,
remember when I first started working for the paddocks when I was a kid. They bought this one T800. It was unit 520, and there was this old guy that drove it named Jack. Oh man, I remember Scott Paddock saying like, "Woof, that truck was $120,000. This is 1997 or 98, and that was a lot of money." Like,
yep.
and that was just like it was just a T800. I mean, and they look nice. The paddocks always really make their equipment look good, but like it didn't have a big motor or anything. It was just like an M11 Cummins 10 speed. It wasn't like set up for heavy haul. It was not. There was no reason for it. The sticker price was belying something else, and it's just they've been going up and up and up ever since.
Yep. Yep. And to pay that much for a truck nowadays, absolutely insane.
Well, there's used trucks that you pay 120, 130, 140 grand for,
Yep.
which is in total insanity to me.
Yep. Yep. No, exactly.
So you're working at White Oak. Have you thought about getting back into being an owner operator, or are you just
I've
are you too busy with the family?
I've thought about it, but then again, I'm always too busy with the family. I work 5, 6 days a week now, and then when I come home, I still have to clean my truck and everything else. So it's basically I'm working 6 days a week. If I'm gone for a week at a time or 10 days, and then it turns into 11 days because by the time I get home, I have to make sure everything's clean, all the paperwork's done. I work enough hours as it is right now, and to try and take on that with a young family, trying to be an owner operator and a one-man show and do everything. Yeah, I have my wife supporting me, behind me. Probably we'd be willing to take on the paperwork, secretary aspect, filing all the IFTA documents and paperwork and all the fun shit that goes along with being an owner operator, trying to save the pennies and everything else. Right now, at this time in my life, having the two young ones, it's really hard to try and get everything, flowing, sort of thing, and have that home time. With the hours and the way that I work now, it's just easier to be a company driver because I put my time in, I put my hours in. But once I'm done for the weekend or I'm done for the week, then I'm done. I don't have to worry about going out and greasing. I don't have to, if there's something broken, I don't have to worry about trying to get it into a dealership and it truck me down for a couple of days, or out there freezing my bag off at -30 trying to replace a starter or a serpentine belt on your truck, you're sitting there freezing your ass off, and you're sitting there contemplating all life decisions at -30 because you can't feel your hands no more, and the belts are starting to crack because it's so fucking cold. So it's one of those things where I think I may get back into it once the kids are a little bit older and they have more extracurricular activities for themselves to keep them busy, where they're not gonna miss me as much, so to speak. But that's always it's always on the back burner for me to be my own boss again. But I got to do it when the time is right. There's no point in rushing it, and then you set yourself up for failure, so to speak, right?
Very interesting choice of words of rushing it. And I haven't paid attention to that trend too much as of late. Are they still trying to sell people on the like lease up owner up thing? Like I
Yep.
haven't looked at like a truck stop magazine in forever because I work locally and I've been around the block enough times to sort of know what I like and know what's going on. But like as far as recent times, are they still trying to sell that dream to people?
Oh yeah. I mean, what's his name? To Scotland. Um, I mean, I could go tomorrow and I could be, my own boss. I could be an owner operator. Going to California, making all this great big money. Here, where you're not going to make any more than I'm making right now, and the only one that's getting richer is the owner of Scotland himself, who's got his own 500-acre compound and a 200-acre fucking long driveway just to get to his compound. You know, his house is bigger than the Parliament of Canada, for fuck's sakes.
I'll take your word for it. I've seen their trucks around. They've been in business quite a while.
Yep.
Although I don't know if anyone's going to California right now because it seems like Interstate 80's closed every other day in Wyoming this winter.
Yep.
So
Yeah, my buddy was just out there.
Everybody
And
be
it was
taking the
closed.
long way around going down to
Mhm.
40.
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't been to California in forever. Did you ever do any of that West Coast stuff, or did you just stay mostly in Ontario?
No, I stayed mostly in Ontario. I went out to not too far into the West Coast, like California and stuff like that. I've never been to California. I've always wanted to go, but then I've also heard all the horror stories. So it's one of those things where, do I want to go or do I not want to go?
It's a pretty epic drive. I mean, yeah, California is a very difficult place to do business. The California Highway Patrol and their DOT, they're like piranhas in the Amazon, man. Like you wade through the river at your own risk because you might not make it to the other side.
Yeah.
But it's very pretty. There's something iconic about the southwestern and western part of the United States. Once you like get to the into Wyoming, and I mean, Nebraska is pretty wide open space too, but it's
Yeah.
it's pretty flat. And once you get into Wyoming and you start getting into the hills and you go through the Wasatch Range in Utah, and then you go across the Salt Flats, and then you're up and down through all these like desert mountain ranges in Nevada, and then you go up through Truckee over Donner Pass, and it's just there's something very aesthetically pleasing about trucking in that part of the world. Sometimes Interstate 80 can feel a little bit like Sesame Street.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of like
Yeah.
a little bit like the 401, perhaps.
Yeah.
The scenery's awesome. There's something to the whole notion of like the American road trip, crossing of the continent, the whole thing. Like everyone has to do it once, but yeah, California in many ways, as Tool made famous of the old Bill Hicks line. Anytime now, Arizona Bay, just fall into the Pacific Ocean because everybody that lives there is no further comment.
But I've always wanted to go out there. I've always wanted to go to the Salt Flats. I've always wanted to go down the Pacific Coast Highway. I've always, it's one of those things where I'll get there. I don't know when. It could be me doing it in my pickup truck just to say that I did it. I will do it eventually. Just who knows? It's one of those things where it's on the bucket list. I definitely want to do it. Going down the PCH, I've always wanted to do that. I don't know if it's because you see it in so many TV shows and movies and everything else like that. You see, the Pacific Ocean right there as a backdrop, and you're cruising down. You got the windows down, and it looks so cool. I don't know if it feels that cool going down that way, but it's one of those trips that I've always wanted to go on. It's just it's never played out for me as of yet. So, but I definitely do want to go, especially those salt flats. Those salt flats look cool.
So you're going. I think last time we texted, you said you've been going in and out of West Virginia and
Yep.
Ohio quite a bit as of late.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been right where that derailment was there in East Palestine there a couple weeks ago. So I've been delivering into Weirton, West Virginia, which is basically right on the border of East Palestine, Ohio. So it's been right there. So I moved out from that. I went and did a Wisconsin turn there the other day, up pretty close to Minnesota, and I'm trying to stay away from that sort of deal. I'm training right now, so the guy I'm training, we have to do like little light stuff, easier stuff. So that's where the easier stuff is right now is the Clevelands, the Ohio's,
Well, Cleveland you can do in a day. Like
yeah,
you can leave home, go to Cleveland, load, unload, come back. And I mean, if everything goes
yeah,
perfectly, that's like a 12-hour day.
yeah. So hopefully hopefully this guy shadows me only for another week or so, and then he can go do the easy stuff, and I can get back out there and collect some more miles. Hopefully, go back to Wisconsin. I love Wisconsin. I don't know what it is about Wisconsin. It's not the cold. It's not. I don't know. It's like my favorite state to go to.
It
I
feels a
don't.
little bit like Northern Ontario
It does.
in many
It,
respects, like the northern half of the state.
yeah, it really really does. And the people are really nice. They're courteous. I mean, you're going to get your people that are dickheads and assholes in every part of the world, but for some reason, I don't know what it is with Wisconsin. I don't know if it's because I'm a Packers fan and it's just the cheesehead coming out in me, but I'm telling you, man, I love Wisconsin. It's one of those states where I just love to go. I stock the truck up on cheese when I go. So when I come back, there's usually like $100 worth of cheese in the truck. The family loves it. So it's I don't know if it's that part of it, but I really like doing Wisconsin turns, and I've liked it for like the last I'd say about 10 years that I've been running Wisconsin. It's just one of those states where I really really enjoy running it.
Whenever I went to Wisconsin or Minnesota, I always did the cross at Sarnia, and then I always went up around the Northway because I hate Chicago.
Yep.
I mean, depending on where you go in Wisconsin, it can be a few more miles.
Yep.
But the further west you go, the more the miles start to equalize. Like if you're going to
Yep.
Minneapolis or somewhere in Minnesota, if you cross Port Huron, go up 75 Mackinac Bridge, and then cut through the UP of Michigan,
Yep.
it's a much prettier drive. It's slower, but prettier and less stress. And you don't have to deal with Chicago at all. And
Yeah.
I always quite enjoyed that. I always loved running through the UP to go over to Minnesota that way.
And I loved the UP, and I went across that Mackinac Bridge for the first time. Oh, I'd say probably 10 years ago, and it was windy and it was cold and it was blowing, and I get on the bridge and I'm just starting to gain up speed, and all of a sudden I see you know the thing 15 miles an hour, and I'm looking down and I'm looking through the grates and I'm going, oh my god, don't I feel like I'm gonna shit my pants here. There's no room for error, there's nothing, and it's you have to go 15 miles an hour. That's it, you can't go any faster.
And they do that spacing thing too, which is hilarious because for those who haven't ever been to Michigan, Michigan has some really weird weight laws, which is to say they don't seem to have any at all. And you'll get guys with B trains with 4 axles on the lead and 4 on the pup, and 8 and 9 axle 48-foot trailers, and they're running around like 160,000 pounds.
Yep.
So you get one of these fully loaded Michigan sleds or Michigan B trains up on that bridge, and you just wonder how it holds it all up. Hey,
Uh-huh. Yep. Because if you look as you're going up, you can feel and you can see the bridge moving like this. And it's one of those things where you don't know if you're on like a bad acid trip or something, because you see everything moving and you're trying to like compute everything in your brain, and then you're looking down as you're going over over top of the bridge, and you can see right down to the water or the frozen tundra beneath you. And it's one of those things where you're screwed. You're up there now, man. If anything happens, you're going for a nice ice bath.
yeah, the Mackinac Bridge is quite an iconic piece of American
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure. I mean, that just to drive over that bridge is a trip in itself. I mean,
Yeah.
that's almost worth the drive, even if you're just in a car,
Yep.
because
No.
the scenery is pretty nice, and you're driving over the connection between Lake Huron and Lake Michigan.
Yep.
And it's just, it's, yeah. I actually think the Mackinac Bridge is, to my mind, prettier thing to look at than the Golden Gate in California. But I mean, that's just me.
That's one of those. That's another thing that I've wanted to do is always cross that Golden Gate Bridge there in California, in San
Yeah.
Francisco. I've always wanted to do that, but to
Yeah.
get there is one of those
Yeah,
things.
no,
But
no, no, no. Take a family holiday. Go in your own vehicle. Go in there in a truck. Like,
but
yeah. No
yeah,
thanks.
that northern Michigan and the Upper Peninsula is probably some of the most beautiful scenery that I've seen in North America. It is, in the fall, especially when those leaves just start to fall and the changing of the colors and everything else like that. You could get lost out there for a day, and I could drive, 40, 50 mile an hour up and down those roads, even slower, and just, admire the scenery. If it took me, 3 days to get across the top of it, I wouldn't be heartbroken at all, because it's one of those places where you feel at peace. You can feel the nature. You can feel everything, why people want to go visit there and why they want to go hunt up there and why they want to be away from civilization up there, because it is so aesthetically pleasing and beautiful and calm and peaceful. It's one of those places where it's just everything, just it seems like you're just calm driving through there until you
Yeah,
get back into the bigger
makes up.
cities.
Yeah, it makes up for all the other crap you have to put up with behind the
Yeah.
wheel. Well, Vince, you've been very, very generous with your time. Do you have any parting thoughts or anything else on your mind you need to get out there?
No, just I was looking at jobs last night that came up on my job board for the Indeed or whatever, and I'm looking at some of these jobs, and I'm looking at the prices that they want to pay these drivers. You know, $44,000 a year, $50,000 a year before taxes, and I'm thinking this is why you have the caliber of drivers that you have now. You're willing to pay them a wage that it's not a livable wage, and you expect these people to to give a shit about an industry or about a truck or about a job or anybody else on the road. They don't care, because with the e-logs into play, everybody's running against that clock. And then you pay a driver crap money. All of a sudden, he doesn't care about the truck. He doesn't care about anything. All he wants to do is get to and from, and he's making the shit money. So he doesn't care if he does damage to the truck, if he does damage to the freight. He doesn't care about driving through your neighborhoods at 80 kilometers an hour. When it's a 50-kilometer an hour zone? They're always go go go. And these are the calibers of drivers that you're getting out here, and it's reflecting on how they're getting paid. Like I don't
Makes the
understand how.
rest of us look bad too.
Yeah, like I don't understand how companies can you know, hold something over somebody's head. Like we've got a job here, dangling a carrot in front of in front of their nose, sort of thing. You know, here you go, and they're paying them shit money. I
It's
just,
one of those little baby carrots you get for your kids. It's not a
yeah,
real carrot.
yeah, and then you wonder, and you sit back and wonder why the trucking industry as a whole is looked down upon so much within like the last 10 to 15 years, and that's one of the bigger reasons like that. And I said to my wife, how could somebody live on this wage? Like even as a single person, you'd have to struggle severely to make ends meet on that type of pay. Now, if you had somebody with a family of a family of six per se in my own spot, how could somebody how do you support a family on that? It's one of those things where I don't understand.
Well, the sort of capitalist logic, so to speak, which views every cost as something to be chipped away at. They've also done that with every service that goes in input. So like trucking to many companies is just this thing they have to pay for that they don't think about. It's like, yeah, we have our product here at point A and it needs to go to point B, and we just want it done as cheap as possible. Unfortunately, they view the labor involved in that in the same way. Just get her
Mm-hmm.
done as cheap as possible. And they don't, like, a lot of companies don't see the value in service. I mean, some do, And
Hmm.
some understand that there's a lot else that goes into this besides just sitting behind the wheel, and they understand that trucks and parts and fuel and everything is expensive. Unfortunately, I haven't looked at a job board in a while. I've been sort of sitting tight with the guy I work for. My wife and I are in the same boat, young family. My wife teaches, so it's good that we both work because I wouldn't be able to carry the can here on what I make
Hmm.
at all. I would have to go back OTR or be doing something far more time consuming than I already do.
Yeah.
But if someone advertises a truck driving job in year of our Lord 2023 and they're only offering 40K, yeah, so oh cool, so I only have to work 30 hours a week. I can go get another job then. That's what I'm
Right.
thinking.
Yep. No,
Like
exactly.
that's part-time wages.
Hmm.
Sorry.
Yep. No, exactly. I mean, and I think a lot of it is because trucking is not registered or not recognized as a skilled trade, and which I don't understand because anybody can go up and down the road, put it in gear, put it in drive, with these automatic trucks nowadays, anybody can go up and down the road straight. It takes a true professional driver to be able to get into some of these tight spaces, get in, get out, be courteous, be professional, no damage to the freight, no damage to customers' property, anything like that. It takes a lot of skill to get into and offload some of these places. And that's just with your normal daily freight that's going in. Now you add, construction into the mix, these big heavy excavators and equipment and all this stuff that has to go down the road. You can't just put anybody in that seat and tell them, okay, well, here's a D6 excavator on the back. You're grossing out at 120,000 pounds. I want you to take this down to Baltimore and do it safely. And you give this to people with no experience, and this is why crashes happen. It's one of those things where I think trucking should have been a long time ago registered as a skilled trade, and if it was, I believe, I wholeheartedly believe, a lot of the shit that you see nowadays wouldn't exist.
Right. I agree with that as well. There's a new advocacy organization here in the US called CDL Drivers Unlimited,
Mm-hmm.
CDLDU. And I was speaking on the phone with one of the guys organizing it. And one of their aims is to I think there's like a rule in the Federal Department of Labor in the United States that requires in order to get the label trade or skilled job or skilled occupation recognized by the government, there has to be a minimum amount of training or apprenticeship time or community college. And according to the feds, it's 2 years. So the idea of requiring a new truck driver to have some kind of 2 year program where, and like how I would structure it would be in somewhat in the same way as how the paddocks trained me. Like when I first got my AZ, I just ran around Hamilton for months, and then they would send me to Toronto or London. I never went very far away for the first couple of years because you're close to home. If there's a problem, if you break down, they can come help you. You get to practice on your own turf. You're not being
Mm-hmm.
sent across the country because the sort of CDL mill system takes people who are brand new, trains them for a few weeks, and then throws them off the deep end with no water wings,
Mm-hmm.
which is a disgusting and disrespectful practice to everybody, to the motoring public, to the industry at large,
Yep.
and should be terminated immediately. And so, if CDLDU or other organizations got together and laid out a structure where, yeah, you do 6 weeks in class in like a traditional sort of CDL school type deal, but then you do another X number of months working in a local capacity, following around other drivers. So many months of that is you have another driver with you in the truck.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have another year where you're working either regionally or close by or continuing to do local. And then after 2 years, you've had all this experience working locally. You got more driving hours under your belt in a more supervised, supported fashion, close to home. Then, okay, now here you go,
Yep.
go run the big road, and then have that structured and recognized as such. I mean, now you'd fight tooth and nail. People like the American Trucking Association and the Canadian Trucking Alliance, all the big guys would hate that because now they would have to start paying drivers more and they would have to revamp their training programs. And
Yep.
It would make moving things a bit more expensive, but that has to reflect all of the externalized costs that the trucking business unfortunately puts on the motoring public. There's accidents. Sometimes
Yep.
it's car driver's fault, and sometimes it's a truck driver's fault. Whatever. There's been studies that have proven that the more, I mean, it's basic common sense. The more experience you have, the less accidents you get in.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been involved in a collision. Have you?
Yep. And they haven't been my fault.
Right. Yeah. It's usually it's usually the four wheeler
Mm-hmm.
that has done something eminently
Yep.
stupid in our presence. But
Yep.
like, you want to keep guys in, so you have this training issue at the one end where, like you say, it should be recognized as a trade or skilled something, and have this like 2-year minimum apprenticeship program. And then if you have better training at the bottom end, and then that kind of elevates the wage floor, and it might prevent more older guys from, even medium term experienced people from saying, the hell with this, I'm not getting paid enough, this
Yep.
job, I get treated like crap, why stay in it? Because the trucking industry, especially here in the US, has a major turnover problem.
Yep.
I would think that cleaning up the bottom end of it would help in that regard.
Well, you'd think so, but I mean, it's one of those things where it makes you shake your head. So
Right. As always, whenever a couple of truckers get together, we're going to solve all the world's problems. But on that happy note, thanks for coming out, Vince. I really appreciate getting to talk to you again.
hey, not a problem, buddy. It's been my pleasure.
Yeah, and the whole look sharp attitude, look professional attitude is something that needs to get spread around, and I'm glad you're still a practicer of that, sir.
Yeah, I try to on every day. I mean, some days I got to push myself a little bit more, but then I realize, it's who I am. It's I don't go out and I don't deviate from certain things, and pride and whatever I drive, whether it's a plastic truck or it's got a big hood, my pride in my vehicle and my work ethic, it doesn't change.
Right? Yeah,
And
you have to work with what you got, right?
that's it. And even
Me
though I
too.
drive,
I drive a 579 Pete,
yeah,
sloped hood, not the
I
prettiest
drove
truck in the world, but
I drive the same thing, but you know what? My pride is still the same. You can eat off my floor, you can eat off my dash. The truck's always clean. I always maintain a professional attitude. The truck always looks professional, as clean as it can be, especially in the winter months up in Canada or in North America, where weather is you could go through all 4 seasons in February, as we've seen the last month there. It was 22 degrees. We were out in a t-shirt loading, and the very next day it was a blizzard back down to minus 40. So I mean, it's you do your best with what you've got, but you can't go back on your normal values, so to speak.
yeah,
And that's the way that I've
maintaining a
brought
good
brought up.
attitude.
That's the most important thing.
On that note, sir, thank you very much for coming on the show. And
Not a problem, sir.
and everybody out there listening, be like Vince. Wash your truck, look good. It pays to look good. Maintain the good aesthetic.
That's the first time I've heard that. Be like Vince.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thanks, Gordo. We'll talk to you soon, brother.